Welcome to the Kickass Couples Podcast. This is the place where we help committed couples who want to level up their marriage experience newfound clarity, hope, and confidence. We're Matthew and Kim, co-hosts and husband and wife.
In 26 years together, we've seen a lot and never thought it could be as good as it is right now. We're here to help you successfully navigate the messy, dirty, and wonderful world of marriage.
We believe all couples deserve and are capable of experiencing an extraordinary and fulfilling marriage. And each week, we're bringing you life lessons from real-life successful couples to help you grow and strengthen your relationship.
We'll get started right after this message.
If you want to learn how to experience the best, most fulfilling year of your marriage, we invite you to order Matthew's new book, Kickass Husband, Winning at Life, Marriage, and Sex. You can get it at Amazon.com or visit Matthew's website, www.matthewphoffman.com. Again, that's Amazon.com or www.matthewphoffman.com. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back to the Kickass Couples Podcast. Today we are interviewing Congressman Roger Williams and his wife Patty. Roger Williams represents the 25th Congressional District of Texas, which stretches from Tarrant County in the north to Hays County in the south and includes much of the Texas Hill Country and Austin. Roger attended Texas Christian University and afterward was drafted to play baseball for the Atlanta Braves, where he played for many years before deciding to open his first small business. He was later appointed to serve as the Texas Secretary of State and, in 2012, elected to the U.S. Congress. With his experience in owning a small business, he has become their advocate across America. Patty Williams attended Austin College, where she received a minor in marketing. She started out working in sales in the hospitality industry and is now the president of Roger Williams Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat dealership. Patty is also a board member in multiple charities, including Tarrant Area Food Bank, Support Our Soldiers, Steering Women for Business, and Texas Women for the Arts. This powerhouse couple thrives in their family life while also dedicating their lives to helping others through their public service. The strong commitment and trust they share spills over into their careers and passions and allows them to be successful in both their private and public lives. Keep listening to get an exclusive insider's view into Roger and Patty's relationship to see how they juggle demanding careers and are able to remain madly in love.
But so the first question we like to ask you all is, and we'd love to hear from each of you, doesn't matter what order you go in, is I'd love to know, what do you think makes you a kick-ass couple?
Well, I don't kind of think of us that way. I think we're more of a humility-based couple. I mean, we live our lives like everybody else, and I don't think we consider ourselves that, honestly. I think making us maybe a kick-ass couple is that, in my mind, would be that we raise two girls that are fabulous, and that makes us a great couple. And I think in our lives, that's our biggest challenge growing up, is making sure that our kids were the best. And, gosh, they're living close to us now, and so we're so excited. They're good girls. We've got two grandbabies. So, I mean, that to me makes us a kick-ass couple because it's a well-rounded couple with our children and everything.
Well, kick-ass couples is not something we'd consider ourselves. Right. Sometimes when you get in a position of leadership, you do things, you are successful in helping people better themselves, etc. People may look at you as that. Mm-hmm. I guess that's a compliment, but we don't see ourselves as that.
Right.
Sure.
And so it's I guess it's nice to be said, hey, you're a leader, you're this, you're that, but it's just something we feel responsible in doing and raising good kids and all, but helping people that have not as been blessed as us, mm-hmm. sometimes push you in that position.
Right.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
I love the humility there. I think that that really shines through in your relationship. So you're really saying that while we believe that we have this great family and we have been able to live our lives in a very positive way, we don't see ourselves as kick-ass, but really and truly, we are just living our lives every day to the best of our ability.
I think that's right. Exactly.
Yeah, and if somebody wants to say you're a kick-ass couple or whatever, that's something they see. That's not something we see.
Right.
Sure.
Gotcha. Well, so I want to take both of you back a little bit because I believe that we are a product of the people who raised us. I really believe that we bring a lot of what was modeled to us when we were younger to our present relationships. And so I want to ask you, Patty, what did love look like in your family when you were growing up? How was that modeled for you?
It was a little different. My parents were both German. They came over as immigrants. I was a naturalized citizen, born in Canada. And growing up, it was always different being in a European family because it wasn't really the typical American family. We did things differently. Daddy worked as a food and beverage manager at a hotel in Fort Worth, Green Oaks, so we always worked split shifts. So we didn't see parents every day at dinner time, and we didn't see them. So it wasn't a traditional family in that sense. We always went on vacations together. Love was not talked about, but more it was interpreted. My parents never said, "Oh, I love you, I love you." It was very different. So in love for them was different in the fact that, I don't know, being part of that World War II group and not being American really, until they came to the United States. My upbringing was different. I mean, they spoke German around the house, and we figured out what they were saying. The relationship was different back then too. I mean, my parents argued a lot. I mean, my dad was a very strong German. He was only 5'5", but he was a very strong German, and so there was a lot of arguing going on in the family, and that brings you to that next question of what would you do differently? And I think what we would do differently, and we talked about it, was we would never want to have our kids go through what we went through as kids, where we always had to hear the arguing, and that was the part of the relationship. Even though they loved each other, it wasn't something that you felt. You always were on edge sometimes when Dad came home late or whatever. So it was a little different for me, and those are the things that we tried to do different in our relationship and with our kids, that we didn't want to have our kids listen to us arguing and stuff like that. So we always kept things calm at our house and tried the best in our ability to not do what I learned that I didn't like and my sister and I didn't like.
Sure. So what I hear you saying is that it was there was a little bit of anger and hostility,
yes.
and sort of it was a household that was a little unsettled. And that you said, I'm not bringing that to
exactly
my next relationship.
Right, and I think and back then I think more the men, were the ones that were in charge of the family, and the women were more the ones that took care of the kids and took care of the households. Because my mom didn't work, but God knows she worked every single day for us. But there was love there, but it wasn't a love that the normal people would call a loving family, if that makes sense. There was love there, but it wasn't a spoken love.
Right. How about for you, Congressman? What did love look like to you when you were growing up? How did your parents express love to each other?
Okay, here's the deal. Okay, I was the only child. My mother was 40 when she had me. She was 3 years older than my dad. So I was born in Chicago. My dad worked for Ford Motor Company. We went all over we lived in Detroit and the whole thing. And so growing up, I never heard my parents say, "I love you." My parents always had a separate bedroom. They always were challenging each other, but they really loved me. I mean, there was never a question that my parents didn't love me. I mean, they everywhere I went, they were at every little league game. And I ended up playing professional baseball. They came to every single game I played in high school, college, you name it. So there was never a question they didn't love me. I never had that fear. But it was interesting because they were both born in, one in 1912, 1915. The Depression, Daddy talked about it all the time. He got in the car business right after the war, and we're still in the car business. But we didn't get any means, if you want to look at that, until about the late 50s. when my mother loaned him $5,000, he'd saved $1,000 and bought a Chevrolet dealership in Fort Worth, Texas. And kind of the rest is history for our family. I was involved, and now our kids run our dealerships and so forth. But my mother never failed to tell my father that he was nothing without her.
Wow.
And reminded her all the time, and would tell me that your old man would be nothing without me. He had one suit when I married him, and so forth. So, and then she was an entrepreneur. She started a needlepoint business that she grew and grew and grew, and she went to work doing that every day. He went to work doing the cars every day. I went to school. He usually came home at 9 at night. I was usually getting ready to go to bed when Daddy came home. But they argued all the time. And I actually thought everybody argued because all my friends' parents were arguing. And when I'd go over to the house, they'd argue. And then I met Patty. I knew, that's another story, I met Patty when she was 3 years old and I was 12. But everybody argued. But that was the nature of it. I mean, it was a rough group. They'd been through depression, they'd been through wars. And what she didn't say is my father-in-law fought on the other side during the war. He was in the German army. So it was, we all had our animals, everybody loved our animals, but when I went to bed at night, they were still yapping and so forth. But I couldn't have better parents. They taught me work ethic. They taught me to be God-fearing. My mother was a Christian Scientist and my dad was a Mormon. Now you figure that one out.
Wow.
And she was a hard left Democrat and my dad was a far right Republican, and so forth. So, but I had a great household. My parents were great. I loved them to death. They loved me, but it could be a fist fight, not physically, but just verbal fist fight every night, arguing who was responsible for this. And shortly before my mother passed away, she called Patty and I to come see her, and she wanted to tell us she had a special bank account that had some money in it, and she wanted us to draw it out because if my father knew it was there, he would spend it. And she wanted to get it in the hands of us before he would get it. So, it was great. But my mother ran for school board. My mother was very political. My dad ran for council, ran for mayor.
Water board.
I learned politics through them, to be engaged and to agree to disagree. How many times I go out in the back and play catch with my dad, right?
Yeah.
And so forth. But anyway, as far as love, I never heard them say they loved each other. They always had a separate bedroom, and they kind of did their own thing until it came to me. Then they came together.
Right. Sure. So it sounds like they were together, but really living their lives apart.
Right. And with the two girls, Patty and I were at every single basketball game, every single track meet, every ballet. They could see us there. And we took them everywhere we could. We'd dress them up, take them, make them shake hands, make them call people by name. And I think so. We've been able to. They're not, and we don't even argue. We don't yell. We're not yellers. Thanks to me, Matthew. I just give in to everything, and so they don't have to hear any of that. So we think we've done a good job there. But we had blessed parents.
We did.
Sounds like you had two unique experiences, and that kind of leads naturally. We have, I don't know if you saw our 13 pillars, and kind of three things that we talk about that we think are foundational in every relationship are the 3 C's. And the first of those C's is commitment. And what I heard you saying in each of your family upbringing is that you both knew your parents were committed to you, and and even though the love was expressed and felt differently. So I'm curious, I'd like to ask both of you all, and Congressman, maybe you could start, is tell me what commitment looks like in your relationship with your bride, and how do you see that show up on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I think commitment is being there when they need you for whatever reason, creating an environment that is peaceful, and when it gets a little away from that, being the big boy and pulling back and getting it back on track. I think you're committed to their needs. I mean, at any given time, is it health? Is it spiritual? Is it financial? What is it? And just doing things to keep the chain of compassion moving forward. as opposed to stopping it and say, well, I don't want to do that. I don't have time for that. Or I'll do it later. I mean, we're all guilty of that, but the less we can do that, the better it is. I visualize a smooth road, not one with bumps on it. And most of the time, us guys are the ones creating the bumps, if you really look at it. So if I can debump, I think I'm doing my part.
That's great. I love the idea of the chain of commitment and keeping it moving. Can you think of a specific example of something that you do or that Patty does in your relationship that demonstrates that commitment, or that that you've experienced so far in your short 37 years?
Yeah. Well, she's always there if I need to talk to her about something. And you know, when you own your own business, you employ hundreds of people. And then you're in politics, you really find out who your friends are, don't you? And you sometimes the only person you can talk to is your wife or even the dog, because they'll listen to you. And she's a good listener, and sometimes you just need somebody to talk to that their opinion will not be bent one way or the other. It'll be real, as opposed to somebody giving you an opinion that they think you want to hear, or they have a need or something. So it gets back to communications, open. We're not having to impress each other. We're both comfortable within our skin.
Sure.
But sometimes you need somebody to talk to and say, hey, I did this, or I didn't do this, or what do you think? And that's a big deal to me when I have somebody I can talk to and not worry about them having an agenda by giving me an answer.
Sure.
Yeah.
So a good non-judgmental ear. That's a wonderful example. And Patty, how about you? What does commitment look like to you in your relationship right now?
A lot of the things that Roger says I totally agree with, and I think that's true. I think as a wife and a mother, commitment also means committed to your children and being, having that commitment within our entire family. So everybody's on the same page. We're very blessed with that. I think they know we love them. They know we love each other. I think commitment is all about that. I mean, it's kind of a giant circle. You start, you have your kids, and you have your grandkids, and you finish the circle. And that's kind of how I see it.
And also, you can't take this for granted. We don't. But I can't tell how many times I tell Patty I love her, that I tell the girls I love them,
right,
that we hug the dogs. And we, with the grandkids too, we have a little deal. We started with the girls, but we all might be standing there and just out of nowhere somebody say 1, 2, 3, hug.
Yeah.
And we'll all hug.
Yeah.
And we got our grandkids now doing that. And it's just it's
cute. It's cute.
It's kind of stupid.
But it's cute.
But it's cute. But
Yeah.
it means something, right?
Sure.
Because if you don't love somebody and you're not happy and your heart's not right, you're not
Right.
going to be able to 1, 2, 3 hug.
Right.
So anyway, and we do that it could happen anytime.
I love that.
Hell, I'd hug you, Matthew, if you
I know,
were
right?
You
He
better.
would do the same. He's a big
I'm a hugger too. Next time I see you both, I'm going to cash in that chip in, Congressman.
There you go.
Our second pillar is communication, and Congressman, you talked a little bit about that. What I would love to know is, you both have busy lives. You're involved in the great state of Texas. You're involved in the U.S., serving the public. You're fundraising. You're servants in your communities. How do you find the time to communicate with each other and make time for each other?
Well, that's a great question, because our schedules we're separated so much. Normally I leave Sunday to go to D.C. I come home Friday, so that's Saturday that we can visually communicate. But we talk a lot on the phone. I mean, we'll say goodnight about 9 o'clock Washington time, and then at 10:30 I'll call her back and say goodnight, or text, that kind of thing. But it's important when you're together you do communicate, because you can lose that. If you're not careful, you'll find yourself sitting in a room for several hours and never speaking to each other. And I have a real problem with her watching
Hallmark.
when I want to be watching Major League Baseball or the Golf Channel.
Right?
But anyway, so sometimes we separate communications there. She stays in the living room and I go to the bathroom and watch. But we're communicating. We're talking, and we're big letter writers. We are, we'll write notes and all that kind of stuff. And our kids are that way too. So we communicate, and sometimes I have found that you actually can communicate better if you don't see each other all the time. Now, not that that's the best relationship, but it's our relationship. And as we kids sometimes, that I come home on Saturdays and it's like we're dating.
That's great. You got to keep dating your wife, right? That's the part of success. And I love what you talked about. I'm a firm believer, Congressman, in the written word as well. Communication seems to be kind of a lost art today, doesn't it? And people rely on a one image emoji is supposed to tell somebody you love them. That's okay, but that written word, sitting down and seeing someone's handwritten word, I think there's a chapter in my book that's coming out, and it's write her a letter. And you got to write those letters and express the gratitude.
You have to, and I call those letters from left field. You get a letter you don't expect, and it doesn't have to be a letter, right? I mean, I could write you a note and say, Matthew, love you, man, and it'll say everything I need to say. But it came out of left field. You weren't expecting it,
right?
And when you don't expect something, that makes it even better.
It does, and it fills that emotional bank account up, right? It really does. Good deposits.
That's right.
How about you, Patty? What does communication look like to you? What are some of the things you've experienced?
Well, I think that's the same thing. I mean, if I have a problem, Roger's probably the first person I call. If I something at the dealership, something with the kids, something with the dogs, I'll call Roger because he's my support. I mean, he's the guy that supports me. So if I've got a problem, I go to my kids too. But if it's something really important, I go to Roger. If it's an emotional thing, something with the dog passed away, you know what I mean? You go to him and he's always there for me. I mean, I can send him a note. He'll come out of a meeting. He'll talk to me right away. So I feel like we have a lot of good communication, and I don't think that's ever been a problem in our relationship, ever.
Well, and we don't hang up on each other.
No.
So.
Unless we're in a dead zone on the freeway or something.
Yeah.
When it comes to creating a kick-ass marriage, do you ever wonder what you could be doing better? Have you ever thought how helpful it would be to be a part of a like-minded community of other imperfect couples who want to level up in their number one relationship? Come visit Kickass Couples Nation, where you can talk with people just like you who are looking for ways to invest in and increase their joy, commitment, and fulfillment in their most important human relationship. You'll have access to a team of licensed marriage therapists, coaches, articles, podcasts, live webinars, and more. Just visit MatthewPHoffman.com so you can learn more about a community that's ready to help you level up. That's MatthewPHoffman.com so you can become of the growing Kick-Ass Couples Nation right now.
Well, our third pillar is conflict resolution. So, and we're going to have in life conflict, right? We can't avoid it. It's going to come up, whether it's something with our children and we're having conflict on the way we're raising them or another family member. And so I'm curious, how, Patty, do you deal with conflict? How do you resolve conflict?
Well, I'm the person. I call myself the peacemaker. That's the way I've always been. I've always looked at conflict. I don't like conflict. I don't like that kind of thing. So I always look at a way to be the pacemaker or the bridge person. So I don't think we have been very fortunate in our lives that we have not had a whole lot of drama conflict. I mean, our families get along. I mean, the son-in-laws are different, but we've managed to find a way to keep all that going. And I think you never go to bed. I always try to make sure that conflicts are resolved before you go to bed. Whether it's if I'm mad at Roger about something, where I was, we'll laugh it off and say, that was stupid, But I think that's for us. That's the best way to handle things is get the conflicts resolved and get them out of the way and move on. I mean, life's too short to have conflicts.
Yeah.
We're running out of that. So. Done with the conflicts.
But I got to tell you, we don't have conflict in our family. Now, look at little things, but there's nothing that lingers. And our kids are that way, and Patty's much more emotional than I am. She'll get emotional. It takes me a lot to get emotional. We've got a daughter that's like me. We've got a daughter that's like her. And now there's sometimes all that hits at one time. It's pretty powerful. But we don't have crises because we just fix it. And Our kids love us to death. We love them. We got great son-in-laws, great granddaughters. We're big on animals. Animals are a big part of our family. We were laughing the other night. We had 3 dogs get in bed with us, and those are our kids now, and so forth. So, we just try to expose a lot of love through our kids, our animals, people around us. And I would tell you, the older you get, the easier it is to love people because you see more good in them than bad.
Wow, and so that's a great concept. Tell me, is that something that you think happened naturally, or is that something that you've had to actively work on, especially in the business that you're in? I mean, because there's got to be times when you're staring someone that's got a different opinion, and they've got to be hard to love, right?
Well, look, I think it's something that you grow into. I know I have, but my father always used to say, Roger, who gives a damn? And in a way, if you got somebody stupid talking to you, or they're acting like I see all the time in politics, who really cares? I mean, at the end of the day, is that really what you're about? And I'm comfortable, you're comfortable with who I am. I don't know what you could say or do to me that would make me so mad that I could just be so angry. If that's where you are, I'm sorry, but I just think the older you get, the more forgiving you get, and the more you see people as saying, hey, dial it back, who really cares?
So I hear what's two skills it sounds like that you've become a ninja is one in forgiving, right? And another one in resolving conflict quickly.
Yeah, because then it's not a problem.
It doesn't fester. It doesn't just eat you up, and that's the problem.
Right. And in business, you do the same thing, right? You get it early before it gets big, and just put it to bed. And that's the same thing with dealing with crisis and families. Just get it handled, put it to bed, and move on, and remind yourself what it was and what you did. And
right.
It's just, I think the healthier you are inside, the better it is.
Yeah, I agree. I think you nailed that. I agree.
But if you want to pay under cost for a car, I may argue with you a little bit.
There may be some conflict.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, we have 10 other pillars that we believe it takes to have a very successful marriage. Do you have those in front of you by chance?
We do.
Perfect. So
we do.
I'm going to ask you, Patty, of the other 10 that are listed, do any of those jump out at you? Does one of those really resonate with you?
You know what? I thought about this last night, and I'm coming up with a 14th.
Okay.
And it's going to be humor and levity. And humor and levity in our relationship, and really in part of all of our relations, even with our kids, is that has been the one thing that you can always go back to. You can laugh, you can smile, you can play a joke on each other. You can, we used to leave little notes. We had a little ice cream thing with the spoon. It looked like the ice cream spilled all over the carpet and stuff, so you'd lay it down there, and and we had a little baby animal poop, and we'd lay it down at different spots. So I'd put it in his dop kit when he went out of town, and we were pranksters. And to me, that's kind of what kept our relationship fun through the years. Whether it's us, it's the kids, or the grandkids, or the dogs, we've always been managed to resolve conflict too through humor and through levity, and just making, sometimes the stupidest things you argue about, and it's so dumb, and you look at each other and we just start laughing. They're like, that was so stupid. Why are we even arguing about that?
I
so
love that
to me, that's a number 14, humor and levity.
We'll add it.
Yeah, and humor is so important in a relationship. You have to have fun together. You have to play together.
Exactly.
The prankster thing reminds me of a funny thing that my husband, he knows that I'm terrified of cockroaches. I just cannot stand them. And he had a little plastic cockroach.
Still do.
That he just leaves for me somewhere. And I'm going to either pull the bed sheets back and it's going to be there or in a drawer. And you'd think by now I'm ready for that. But no, it gets me every single time.
His name is Reggie.
His name is
Reggie. Reggie the cockroach.
We had one of those too as a little spider. And see, we would move that around too.
So you get it.
You get it.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So in my mind, that is my pillar that I feel like I always go back on, and it's humor.
Are you listening?
So that's kind of my pillar.
Yeah.
All right.
How about you, Congressman? Is there one that jumps out to you that you really resonate with?
Well, so appreciation is a big deal. I think we have to tell people we appreciate them all the time. People, a lot of people just need something like that in life, to let them know that they're important or whatever. Somebody cares for them. And I can't tell you how many people I tell during the day, I appreciate you. And I mean that, because what I do, I mean, the business we have, I couldn't do it by myself. It takes 300 people to do what we do. Politics, you know how that is. I got a staff that, I mean, they prepare me, they get me there. They tell me right before I go into a room who am I going to see. I mean, you couldn't do it. And I appreciate that. And I think there's so much to appreciate. How about appreciating where we live? You know, appreciating who our friends are, appreciating our family, appreciating all this. So I think that's a word that I know I use it all the time. And then, you know, you got faith and moral code. I mean, as we get older, how many times do we have to praise God for the situations He's put us in where we can help people, and I can talk to you and you can get the message out, and all the things. I mean, the just the appreciation and the faith that we have, and of course unity. You can't do anything alone, right? You've got to have people. People that are alone are just, they're loners. Things don't happen. So all these things work, but I guess the bottom line is I had to come up with the words appreciation. We need to appreciate people, appreciate our environment, and be fearful that, you know, and grateful that God's put us in this situation.
I love that heart of gratitude. Thank you for sharing that with us. That's really important.
I agree. You guys are sewing it all and weaving a great fabric with some amazing qualities. And, you know, we have a concept that we want to talk to you about a little bit now. It's called spillover thinking. And we are big proponents, and you know, I think my number one job is to fill my wife with so much love she can't contain it, and that it spills over. And I think that everybody she comes into contact with is a benefit of my love to her. So I'm curious, you all have a successful relationship. You built it on love, trust, appreciation, commitment. How have you seen the good of your relationship spill over to other areas of your life? And how have others benefited from the strength that you two share together?
Well, let me jump in real quick. I've seen that spill over in my kids, because frankly, they do what we do. I mean, you know, they really do. And I think it gets down to being copied. You know, I think if you've lived a life that's worth being copied, you've done a pretty good job. And our kids, frankly, copy us. They talk like we do, they think like we do, they dress like we do, and you know, it's because they look up to us. And I think that it spills over with the people we're in too. I mean, when you're in leadership, right? Look, at people know, they pick up on what you say, they use words you say, they see how you walk, they see how you talk, they see how you dress, and that's the spillover. And my dad always said that always pick somebody that you look at as being very successful. Don't try to change anything, just copy them. And you know, if you just copy somebody successful, then try to make it better, that's a spillover. And that's kind of the way I think we've been able to live our life. But certainly we've had spillover with our kids.
Sure.
And it sounds like your daughters are emulating that great role model that you've given them.
I think that's true.
Well, they're really givers. They just got through, along with Patty, heading up a capital campaign for a no-kill shelter for $2 million, and they got it done.
Wow.
And then Patty chaired a capital campaign for the food bank, just built a brand new building, got it done. And with our baseball background, we try to build baseball fields for kids and people. You know, spillover, right?
Absolutely. It sounds like it's going to a lot of different wonderful areas.
A lot of shared good. Love to hear that.
Yeah.
So you want to take the next one?
Good.
So our last question that we're going to ask each of you here is, if you had to go back to your unmarried self, put your hands on the shoulders of your unmarried self, Patty. We'll start with you if you don't mind.
Okay.
And give your unmarried self one piece of advice about marriage. What would that be?
Probably being more patient. I'm one of those people that I want it done now, I want it done right, and I've had to learn to be patient, and I think in a relationship, patience is so important because it's not all the times how you want it or the way you want it. It needs to be something you work out together, and I think I've learned that now. And if I didn't, it probably would have saved me a lot of grief early on if I'd have thought about it more. But I think now being more patient, I think would have been a good thing for me, and being less stressed about things because I am more emotional. So sometimes things affect me more. So that's why patience. In my grandmother, who was German, couldn't speak English very well, but she always, immer mit der Ruhe, is always take your time. And I think that's one of the things that I've learned over the years. I wish I'd known then what I know now.
Sure. Great advice. Mm-hmm. How about you, Congressman? What would be your advice to your unmarried self?
Well, now, knowing what I know now, I'd say to myself, be nicer to people. Don't be abrupt, be compassionate, because I was none of that. I mean, I just wasn't. And then you get pretty full of yourself. I was playing professional baseball at age 21, and I was i.e. somebody. So you're pretty full of yourself. So I would say be nicer. Don't be so self-centered. So I had the 4th grade teacher, Mr. Stovall, every morning. He would say this to the kids: children, be nice to people. There's so many of them and so few of you. Mm-hmm. Well, that didn't ring home to me until I got older, but I quote that all the time. But I was pretty self-centered. I had a short temper. It was all about me. And then as I got older, I grew out of all that. So I would say that to myself: be nicer, don't be so self-centered. Mm-hmm. And business-wise, I was that way too. Mm-hmm. But
he's a softie now. He really
now
is.
I'm gone the other direction.
You're softening. No, do you think
he is?
Can you remember, Congressman, a turning point, or like when did that change for you, or how did that change for you, or how, if somebody is sitting today going, yeah, I'm kind of that way now, what's the key to make the change? How do you do that?
Well, it has. I mean, it's got to be. It's spiritual. It's got to be spiritual. I found Jesus Christ when I was 21 in a hospital bed, but I didn't really know what had happened to me until 84 when we had the first daughter born, and I got to see God's creation, and then it just was.
When you have kids, I think. Honestly.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, kids make you a little more.
They do.
But I became, that kind of turned me around. I guess I would say children, because before then, I never thought. I always said I'm not going to have kids. I'm not going to get married. And when you'd see something on TV with a child being abused or hurt, it never affected me. But now I have to turn the channel, or when I hear about it, because you're so different. Mm-hmm. But I think that's the way God works. And anyway, so I got to be more compassionate, got to be a little nicer, got to be a little more understanding as I grew into my 30s.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. 40s. Okay. 40s. I was still bad in my 30s.
That's right.
Well, you made the change, though, and you recognize it now, which is half the battle.
Right, and it allows me to be able to talk about it to other people that may not have gotten there yet,
Mm-hmm. Sure. That's how we learn and grow from others, right? So if you're willing to share that with other people, saying don't be stuck in that mindset, in your earlier years. Don't wait. Do it now.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly.
Well, we are so grateful for the time that you have given us today in this interview, and I'd love to share with us. It sounds like you all do so much good in your community and for others, and if people want to connect with you or learn more about you or what you're doing and follow you, how do people do that, Congressman or Patty? How do people find out where you are and what you're doing?
Well, I guess I can give you what's our
Roger.
Roger. I'm got my team here already asking for help. If somebody wants to communicate, learn more about me as a congressman and this and that, Williams.house.gov.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Okay.
And we tweet and we Facebook, we do all that stuff, so they can learn everything about me by
Terrific.
Go into that, and they can even respond to see if they like me or not.
There you go. There's a lot to like. There's a lot to like. Well, we want to thank you all for taking the time with us, for opening up and sharing, because the pearls you've shared today will certainly be germane and help others as they're going and working on their number one relationship. So we appreciate the time.
Yeah, happy anniversary. Thank you for spending your anniversary with us. We're so grateful to have you here today.
Thank you.
I love meeting you both and getting to know you a little bit better, but I really hope I get to see you in person.
We look forward to that opportunity.
Yeah, we'll plan that.
Go Frogs.
Yes.
That's right.
Go
That's
Frogs.
Right.
TCU, that's right. All right. We look forward to talking again soon with y'all. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
That's all we've got for this episode of the Kickass Couples Podcast. If you like the content of this show, you'll love Matthew's newly released book, Kickass Husband, Winning at Life, Marriage, and Sex. To receive a digital mini book of quotes and images from the book, all you have to do is rate this show and leave a review in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to listen. Then email us a screenshot of your review at podcast@kickasscouplespodcast.com, and we'll get it over to you right away. Until next time, remember, happily ever after doesn't just happen, it's on purpose.